Okay, lesson 5 objectives: solve world problems involving the division of whole numbers with answers in the form of fractions or whole numbers. Solve world problems is just a fancy way of saying we're going to take all the stuff we've been learning at this point. Now we're going to try to apply it to real world situations. And word problems are always a very hard obstacle for students. So using the tape diagrams through these word problems will help them out tremendously. Okay, when someone donated 14 gallons of paint to Rosedale Elementary School, the 5th grade decided to use it to paint murals. They split the gallons equally among 4 classes. How much paint did each class have to paint the mural? Well, if we look here, we can see once again when someone did, they had a total of 14 gallons. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my tape diagram, make sure I'm doing this correctly. Now I know the total up here was 14 gallons. And it said they split it up equally between 4 classrooms. And they're wanting to know how much each class got. So we can see by this, we're going to do 14 gallons divided by 4 classrooms, which equals 14 fourths, which now we can see 4 going to 14 3 times, because 4 times 3 is 12, and there'll be 2 fourths left over, which is also equivalent to 3.5 gallons. So each class would get 3.5 gallons. Now, the way for me to check this, obviously, is add all these up and see if I got 14. So if I count them up, I got 3, 6, 9, 12 in whole numbers. 1/2 and a half is 1, and a half is another 1, which gives me a total of 14. So checked. Now, when someone donated 14, okay, that's the same question. It says, how much paint will 3 classes get? Well, you can see we just solved saying that 1 class got 3.5. So 3 classes with 3.5 plus 3.5 plus 3.5. So 3, 6, 9 plus 1/2 plus 1/2 is 2 halves, plus another 1/2 would be 3 halves, which equals 1.5. So 9 plus 1.5 would give us 10.5 gallons of paint. Now C, if students share a 30 square foot wall equally, how many square feet of the wall will be painted by each student? Okay, so let's do a tape diagram. And we know that the total up here is 30 feet squared. And it says they're split up by 4 students. And I want to know how much each student painted. So we can see this is going to be 30 feet divided by 4 students, which equals 30 fourths, which when I convert that, 4 we're going to 30, I know 4 times 7 is 28, so it's going to be 7 with 2 fourths. 7 and 2 fourths is also equals 7 1/2. So now each student would paint 7 1/2 square feet. And we could check that by adding them up. 7, 14, 21, 28 in whole numbers. We got 1/2 and 1/2 is a whole, and 1/2 and 1/2 is another whole, for a total of 30 feet squared. Checks. What fraction of the wall will each student paint? Well, it said there was 30 square feet squared in the whole wall. That was 30 feet squared. There's 4 of them. And it said that they did 7.5. But if you can see, we've already split it up. So what fraction of the wall will each student paint? Well, it's already been split up. Each student will paint 1/4. 1/4 of the wall. Okay, next question. It says Craig bought a 3-foot long baguette. A baguette is like a long submarine sandwich type of bread. It's a little smaller though. And then made 4 equal-sized sandwiches with it. What portion of the baguette was used for each student? Each sandwich. Draw a visual model. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a tape diagram for a visual model. And we know that this here was 3 feet of sandwich bread. It said they made 4 equal sandwiches and wants to know what portion was used for each. Now it says what portion. So we can see this is 3 feet divided by 4 sandwiches, which equals 3/4 of a foot. So each sandwich is 3/4 of a foot. So if I wanted to check this, I could add the 3/4. So we got 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. They have to add up to be 3 feet. So I know it's going to end up being fourths, but I go 3, 6, 9, 12. And 12 divided by 4 equals 3. It checks. How long in feet is one of Craig's sandwiches? Oh, so in all actuality, our answer for this is where our 3/4 of a foot comes from. All this one here wanted to know was what portion of it. Well, the portion that was used here was 1/4 of the whole baguette. So 1/4 of the bread per sandwich. So that's where we got to watch this and read them very closely. And the last one, how many inches long is one of Craig's sandwiches? This comes back to our old conversions. We know 3/4 foot is equal to 3/4 times 1 foot. Now we want it in inches, so we know this is 3/4 times. We're going to replace this 1 foot with 12 inches. Now, what I like to do on this, now I could add 3/4 12 times. Okay, so we could go 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to add 6 and double it. So we know it'd be fourths. It'd be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 24. So I know 12 is going to be 36/4. And 4 will go into 36 because I know 9 times 4 is 36. So each one would be 9 inches long. Now this is the way we've been doing it, adding them. But the most efficient method for this, 3/4 times 12 inches, would be to rewrite it as 3 times 12 over 4. And I can see that 12 and 4 have factors in common, which is 4. 4 are going to 4 one time. 4 are going to 12 3 times. And that allows me to go 3 times 3 is 9 over 1, which gives me 9. A lot more efficient using that standard algorithm. But until you get the algorithm, this is a very effective method.